Back in line, you dog! On your feet! Get them going!
Good. This is working. Afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever the case. I didn't check and see if my audio is working. Audio, is my audio working? Hail, Justin. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Sorry, I'm still like I just took some sinus medicine and like suddenly I'm like draining. Like, what does it do? Does it like turn my mucus into liquid and just start falling out of my face? It's very, very annoying. Chuck almost finished yesterday's stream. Faster, faster. Yeah, we can hear you. Good, good, good. Does death come in the form of a handshake? Oddly, it can, can't it? Strange. You know, there's an Aikido move where if you, from the position of taking someone's hand shake, like the handshake shake, if you like pull them forward and then crank up, that hurts like a son of a gun. You could just you could disable somebody from a handshake just back. Bam! It's like if you're strong enough and if they can't overpower you, you could just and just that hurts. That bend just woo. Anyways, so yes, perhaps death comes in the form of a handshake. Can we meet you at a con and can we, this concan is messing my brain up. If we meet you at a con, can we get a hand Shane? Was it worth it? Was it worth it? Sorry. I can't wait till I get rid of this cough and draining and everything and just be back to normal. It's super annoying. But as the title says, death comes for us all. Why? Why? Why am I asking this question? So I'm not gonna brigade somebody. There's a woman out there. Gosh dang it! You know what? Let me relate this to the woman who was in our chat, or was it in a show? Was it in a show, or was it? I think it was. She was in the show, and then she was in the comments a few weeks ago, and she was just hating on Jehovah because her child died. Right? Remember this woman? And she was just everything. She was just upset. Her entire life had become about grieving her child. And there's another woman on Twitter who I blocked her a long, long time ago because she would constantly come after me, and I'm like, for those of you who have been watching my show for any amount of time, you're familiar with how much grief I've had in my life. I've had, before any intimate family of mine had died, probably 7 of my friends had died. I don't even want to count them right now. But I was introduced to death in high school. I had a couple friends die on motorcycles. After high school, my best friend, Angie, died in a car crash. Well, she was my best friend in like my senior year. And then I had friends die of overdoses. And I was already very, very familiar with death before my wife and I lost our first child. She actually had a second miscarriage, which wasn't, it was like sort of The first one was because we were past what you'd consider the safe zone. But, oh, it's 3 months in. You can tell everybody you're pregnant. And that was. I don't wish that on anyone. But there's this weird, like, there's this hidden group out there. Before you suffer a miscarriage, you don't know anyone who's had a miscarriage. And then after you've suffered a miscarriage, the grieving counselors of the miscarriage family, people come out of the woodworks to grieve with you because they've gone through it too. It's weird. It's like the secret thing. It's like this. Nobody wants to talk about losing a baby. Weird, right? I know. So weird. You don't want to talk about losing a baby. I don't want to talk about losing a baby. I'm just trying to make a point. We lost a second baby, but she didn't know she was pregnant, and then she miscarried, and we're like, so at the very least at that point we didn't have the built up and the expectation and we're already loving this child that's in your womb type of thing, right? It was just, how often is this going to happen type of thing, right? And then we lost my mother-in-law. That was obviously super hard. And then I held my dad's hand while he was dying a painful death because his pancreas was eating itself from the inside. Held his hand, looked him straight in the eye while he was dying. I told him I'd see him there. Don't just let go. Don't be afraid. And then my nephew, who was the closest thing to a son to me besides my own kids, got run over by a tractor when he was 14 years old. I don't bring this stuff up. I don't make grief my life. I'm so familiar with grief. Honestly, I expect it at this point. I don't know if that's sad or what, but I'm always expecting another shoe to fall, another loved one to disappear from my life forever. I just, at this point in my life, I've had a cousin commit suicide. I can't even, I honestly don't even know how many people that were closer to me have died by now. I don't want to do the math. But you can't let grief consume your entire life. You can't. If someone you love dies and you let grief consume your life, you died too. Death got two of you in one swing. Nobody gets out of this life alive. No one here gets out alive. Right? It's the smartest thing that idiot freaking Jim Morrison ever said. No one here gets out alive. And you can't just live your life in constant grief. I understand. Grieve. I understand. Grieving. Grieve. Take the time to grieve. But holy snap, man. Get a counselor. Find a priest. Find a pastor. Find somebody who can walk you out of that valley of the shadow of death. Chuck says, QB is in that hell on earth, as it were. Yeah. Yeah. I feel bad for her in the one sense, right? In the obvious sense. of course, I feel bad and I grieve for anyone who's lost a child. I know that grief as but on the other hand, I will not allow someone to use their grief as either weapon or shield against me. Because, brother, grief and I are old freaking friends. So, I may sound callous if I tell, like I was so blunt with that woman who came on here telling us how horrible Jehovah is because her child died. Yeah, you don't get to use that on me. I'm sorry. Go talk. You know, I was talking about this with my nephew, Justin, a couple months ago. About Justin's like 30. What year is it? 1990. Justin's about 30. I think he's 30. And he was telling me, I was telling him about this because, like I said, we lost my mother-in-law, and she just adored Justin. Like she died when Justin was like 10, and it's like she's like the light in his heart, right? No, not this Justin. Mike the Unmerciful. And he was telling me about a friend of his because he's familiar with grief, obviously. His most beloved grandparent, actually, he loved her more than he loved his parents, passed away when he was a kid. And, he's got her name tattooed on his chest. This is also sweet, right? But he was talking to a friend of his who's the same age, and he was telling him he's never known anyone who's died. And I'm like, how do you go 3 decades in life and not know anybody who's died? Again, I couldn't tell you how many people I knew who died by the time I was 30. It's crazy. How do you not know? Do you not know anybody? How do you not know anybody who's died in 3 decades of life? I don't know. It's just to say, most people, maybe not this kid, 30-year-old, not this man, but everyone has had grief. I was watching 1882 last night, and this girl's fiance gets murdered or killed, and then she's grieving, and she's just talking about grief and how no one can get out of this. If you love anyone, at some point you're either going to grieve for them or you're going to be the grief for them. Oof. Oof. That is so true. So if you love somebody and they love you, someday you're either going to be their grief or they're going to be yours. Smacks. But again, you can't let that become your dominant character trait. You cannot live in grief in perpetuity, or you're just in a living hell, and you've got to find a way out of that. Corpse Grinder finding the silver lining. Not if you go together in a car wreck. That's how my 2 of my brother-in-laws went out. Car wrecks. Yes, 2 of my brother-in-laws. My mother-in-law. Oh my gosh! I know so many people that have died. Now I'm just being reminded of people who have died because of, oh gosh, and Suzanne. Oh, I knew Suzanne since 7th grade. She was this, I don't want to call her an ugly duckling, but she was just this fat little thing. She was the sweetest human being you'd ever meet. in high school, she turned into like a swan, just the most gorgeous. So her exterior caught up to her interior, and she was on the way to Vegas with her fiance, and he fell asleep at the wheel. And her side of the car did not have an airbag. Uh, 4 high school buddies died in different car accidents before 30. Like, you can't get away from it, right? As the tweaked quote goes, life will make corpses of us all. Yeah, no one here gets out alive, man. Yeah, Suzanne and Angie both died like within a year. And they were both on the cheerleading squad in my high school. Oh, Jesus, that was just so heart-wrenching. Anyways, glad I could uplift everyone this morning. I'm from a small drinking village with a fishing problem. That's a great line. Apologies. I think I'm dying. Will you grieve for me? I hope so. I hope you will grieve for me when I'm gone, because someday I will be, like it or not. And then Mike, Death, and Robots. So I don't know where to take that. It's just what was on my mind before the show started. Because some idiot, and I don't want to talk about the idiot. Why grieve for you when you will be better off? Well, grief isn't for the person who's gone. Grief is for the person who's still here. Grief is for it. Look, I know if my wife passes away, she'll be in paradise, right? It's not that. It's that I'm grieving because I'll be. It's grief. Grief is very selfish, right? If you're a Christian, grief is selfish, and I don't say that in a bad way. But you're not grieving that the person is with Jesus, right? You're grieving because you're never going to see them again until you die. That's the thing. I mean, I don't want to be as trite as saying, but just correlate. It's like the last episode of your favorite TV series, right? There's never going to be any more of that. You can go back and reminisce about all the stuff that's already happened with the person you love. But there's that is over. You grieve that wonderful grandmother Justin had, my nephew, my kids don't get to have because she's in paradise, right? I grieve that my mother-in-law is gone because of what a phenomenal grandmother she was to the grandkids she had already, and how I know she would have just doted on my kids like nothing else on earth. She literally died the year my oldest was born. And that is grief. That's the grief is the loss. It's not about them. It's about what we're missing out on by the lack of their presence. Right? You understand? I don't know you personally, but I feel you would leave a hole in the world, Mike. Oh, thank you, Mark Share. I had a buddy in high school who get run over by a bicycle at 2 a.m. and he was going to a girl's house. This was 11th grade. Yeah, Pat was my first friend that died, and it was a motorcycle. He was driving on the wrong. Well, he was driving on the right side of it. The problem was there was construction by his school, and so they had like blocked off some part of the road, and then the other part of the road was divvied up so that traffic could go both ways. It was a 4-lane. They turned it into a 2-lane, and then they made the traffic go both ways. Well, the idiot in the Mercedes who was on the she was just driving on the wrong side of the road. Pat was on the right side of the road. Game over, Pat. But yeah, that was just number one. I think I was 16. Heaven on earth or heavenly afterlife? Well, I'd say paradise. I mean the resurrection. I can't say with 100% certainty that humans go to heaven. I know there's arguments. I know there's some scripture that lead me to say that, but from the preponderance of scripture, I think we just were taken out of time and put into resurrection day. Like we close our eyes in death and we open our eyes and we're all resurrected. I think I'd say I'm 80 to 90% on that side of what happens to us. I'm not saying it's impossible. We go to heaven. Absolutely missing people is our loss, not theirs. That's right. I lost my emotional capacities after my great-grandmother passed. I am pure logical in nature. My great-grandmother lived to be 103. She had a nice long run. But yeah, that kind of grief, I don't know when it was. Were you like 12 or something? There's something about that with the adolescent years where I think things shape us the most emotionally and psychologically. Like those are I guess they call them your formative years, right? These adolescent years between childhood and adulthood. Really, when things happen to us in that time, they really kind of lock cogs into place. You know what I mean? Oddly enough, when my mom passed, I hurt, but at the same time was at peace. That's how it was with my dad. That's how it was with my dad, because I knew where he was going. I know who the peace had come from because I don't know if I'd ever experienced it before. Yeah. Felt the same when my stepdad passed. I understand what you're saying. Yeah. I totally do. The peace that passes understanding. Exactly. We get doses of that for sure. It's hard to explain. At least I'm not good at it. No, but we all get it. Isn't that funny? We all get it. You are not too late, Bruno, nor are you XS writer. Good job, great Nana Miller. I know, right? Actually, she was Sumi. Her last name was Sumi. Sumi. Or Suni. Sumi. I was around 19, so right at the end of adolescence there. Bruno, hi ladies. Welcome, one and all. Joe says, I remember when my great-grandmother died. My grandfather said, now I'm an orphan. That's great. She was from Constantinople, had a great library. She was from Constantinople? Wow. Before it was Istanbul. That's why they teach the Bible to children before the age of reason. Got to get them early. Yeah, that's why they teach. That's why they teach evolution to children. Got to get them early. uh, uh, uh. Is that what happened to you? Let's see. Have you ever heard of the YouTube channel called Ancient Egypt and the Bible? It's run by an Egyptologist named Dr. David Falk. I know that name, and he has great streams, and he has a fiction novel series you might like. I've not heard of that channel per se, or at least that I can recall, but I know that name, Dr. David Falk. So maybe I have seen something from the channel, or I've heard other people talk about it. I'm not. I cannot say. I cannot say. But yeah. Yes, isn't it funny how that argument can be used on the other side, Corpse Grinder? They teach evolution to kids before the age of reason too. Gotta get them early. Gotta wash those brains. My grandfather was born in Nicomedia. I have his birth certificate. It bears the seal of the Ottoman Empire. Holy Schnitzengruben. Grandfather. So he was born. Oh yeah, Ottoman Empire was pre 1918. So when was your grandfather born? You know what sucks is like all the records from my paternal grandfather's side, the Miller side, um, were destroyed in a bank fire in like 1875. So I'm sure there are other records, but it's like once you break the chain, or you burn part of the chain, it's hard to keep. It's hard to backtrack after that. I wonder if there's any way to though, because I can backtrack my maternal my grandfather's mother, the Sumi side that I was just talking about. I can backtrack her on Ancestry.com through birth certificates, through public records, through all that stuff, all the way back to 1211, where my great grandfather was the second vicar of the Church of St. Mary's in England. His name is on a plaque on the wall and that's one of the cool things about Ancestry is it's like some people will post up actually like the gravestones of, if they don't have pictures, they'll post up gravestones or any kind of historical marker that they had access to for the people, because some people are like, they just super sleuth this to my uncle David was like a super sleuth on Ancestry, so he's just like, and because he did all that footwork for me, I didn't have to do it. So he did it, and like, yeah, man, it's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, 1211. 1211. The Catholic Church kept fastidious records on births, and who ran Europe for a whole long time. And her side of the family, they came over in 1611. So we were like a century and a half before America was America. We were here. We were OG America, yo. OG. And then my mom's first generation. So I'm the best of both worlds. I'm first generation immigrant, and I am 150 years pre-America American. Of course, I have no idea how far back the Miller side went because the records are gone. At what age did you start reasoning? I'm probably an early reasoner. I was rather of the philosophical sort when I was like 13. They came over the Greek mainland after the Greek and Armenian genocide by the Turks in 1922. He had a bare memory of their house's door, almost like Danny in the Game of Thrones. Oh, that's interesting. That is very interesting. You know why it's interesting? I'm listening to Les Miserables right now. And it's funny because I just listened to War and Peace, and like Tolstoy has sort of a very different perspective on the Napoleonic Wars, and then like Les Miserables written by a Frenchie, and so he has a very different perspective on the Napoleonic War. And then it now that just reminded me, it's like every war, the history of every war. They say history is written by the victors. Well, oddly enough, history is also written by the vanquished, right? Everyone has a perspective on every war, and the way you get to the truth of those wars is by cross-referencing the victors and the vanquished stories. That's why it's like if you go to Real Crusades history and you listen to oh my gosh, I don't even know how many videos on the Crusades that he has, but he uses original sources, both Christian and Muslim. So it's like like a sultan will have plenty of writing on what happened at the Battle of Acre. And then there will be writings from soldiers at the Battle of Acre who like wrote back to their wives back at home, right? So you use these first person perspective sources, and you cross reference what happened. You Venn diagram what happened from one perspective and then the other perspective. And while the other stuff may be true, the stuff that crosses over in the Venn diagram, it is what is confirmed as true, because you've got the victor and the vanquished telling what happened. So the whole history is written by the victors. That's only from the perspective of the victors. You can go and find World War II. You can find the U.S. perspective. You can find the English perspective. You can find the German perspective, the French perspective, the Russian perspective, the Turks perspective. Everybody wrote their history of that. So history being written by the victors is a misnomer. Unless you are in the country or the culture of the victor, and the only thing you ever hear is our perspective of the victory, right? So I think the best way to go about history is to read the vanquished story and the victor's story, and just kind of see where the Venn diagram crosses. That's where you can stand on truth, absolute truth. Well, I don't want to say absolute like absolute, but as confirmed to history as you can is when the same information is told by victor and vanquished. The other stuff could be true. You just have to take it with a little grain of salt. Victims, aren't we all? History is taught by the victors. I just went through the whole thing. Isn't that what I said? Well, if the victors burn the town and kill the people, the victors get to tell the tale. That's true. That's true. Problem is one side's story is often missing. That is also true. My family lost its name when we immigrated to the U.S. back in the day. They couldn't pronounce it and gave us a new name, and over time we lost our last name. Yeah, that's too bad. Yeah. I wish I had an interesting last name. Even as a kid, I'm like, why the hell are we Millers? I'm not out there grinding grain. And it's like you're not all Millers are related, right? It's like if you got some fancy name like my wife, she's a Solomon. So you know the origin of her name. I mean, it's kind of exclusive. But when you have 300 wives and 700 concubines, then the last name kind of loses its exclusivity, right? It's not like you're just even David. David had like 10 concubines, right? So you could be a Ben David, or even just the last name David, and it's a much more exclusive royal lineage than the guy who was sleeping with 1,000 women. However, in Jewish circles, because she's a Solomon, they treat people of the Davidic line a little bit better than like if you go to a synagogue or something. It's like, oh, you're a Ben David, you're a son of David. Evolution is started in science class 11 to 14. No, it's not. You're just talking about school. Evolution is pumped through every media source since birth. Have you not ever watched TV? Evolution is taken as a given. It's taught as it's spoken of as a fact in every media source and every media outlet out there, except for people like me who question and deny. So it is inculcated since birth. History's talking. Yes, that is exactly what you said, Mike. Hi, everyone. Hi, James. Joe says, Tolstoy was a very special guy. He was super privileged, but also had empathy and was the first one who set his serfs free and gave them a salary. Based. Had to throw the quote from The Crow in that chat. Listening alongside made me think, all right, what did you say, Dark Admiral? How do I know? Am I missing something? I must have missed it. I'm sorry. I don't know. Miller seems cool. No, I'm a horrible wreck of a man. Battle of Acre. Prophetic. Cause and effect. The real reason for wars. Dirt and water. I really want to know my last name. Well, long ago, people didn't have last names. You know, people back in the day, they would have, if I was a Miller, or they would have called me the like in the Bible, right? James didn't have a last name. The delineating factor of his identity was James, the brother of Jesus, because there are so many James around, right? John the Baptist, John the Revelator, right? Because he might have been from whatever house he was from Judah, right? So they adopted some started when last names, I guess, started becoming in vogue. Oftentimes they would use the last name of their house. Ben David. Ben means son of, right? Ben David is a name. Ben Judah. Naphtali. You know, what's the Levi? They would take the last name of their tribe or some ancestor, and that's I don't know when in history last names became the like quote unquote official. Tina probably looked that up for me. But yeah, Miller's that's an easy delineator. Hey, have you seen John? Which John? The Miller. That just gets shortened to Miller. John Miller. How many people are running mills? Milling was a very every town had a miller. Every town had a smith. Any idea why there's so many millers and smiths out there? Now you know. So you could be part Amish. They have a lot of millers. There is the idea that we are Pennsylvania Dutch, which, yeah, we could have some Amish. That might be where the name came from. Very, very well could have. Millers are fences in medieval times? What? Fences? My stepdad and mama's last name is Turner. Everybody always asks me if my name is Tina Turner. I grew up with a beautiful young lady. Not grew up with her, but like all the way from elementary school through high school. She actually works in Hollywood now. Named Jennifer Lopez. In fact, Jennifer Lopez was the cause of that big fight where I invited everybody over to my house to fight because Brian, it was the two Brians. Brian Siraj. Who was the other Brian? Two Brians wanted to fight over Jennifer Miller. Jenny, we call her Jenny, obviously. Wanted to fight over Jenny Miller. Like fighting over her is gonna make one of them her boyfriend or something. This is elementary school, so I I was like, well, I know the rules of the school. You can't fight on school property. You're going to get suspended. So why doesn't everybody, I lived across the street from the school. Why doesn't everybody come over to my front yard and have the fight? And so, because they were trying to recruit me, I think, oh no, that was Brad Siraj. What was Brian's last name? I can't remember either of these guys' last name. That doesn't matter. It was only like 45 years ago, or more. And so they come over to the house, and then the principal comes over to the house because like half the school is in my front yard. So we can have a fight, an elementary school brawl. Like literally these two Bryans were like recruiting guys to fight for them. So there was going to be like a gang war on my front yard. And then like the principal came over and broke up the fight. And the next day he called the leaders, whatever, into the office. And he suspended everybody. I'm like, why am I getting suspended? And he said, because you are the school's responsibility. Or I made the argument. I'm like, we weren't on school property. You can't suspend us because we weren't on school property. And he said, you are our responsibility, which I think he was lying, by the way, but I caught him anyways. You are our responsibility from the moment you leave school to the time you get home. And I looked at him and I go, I was home. He couldn't suspend me because I caught him in his own trap. See, I had this brain when I was in elementary school. I could defeat our principal in a debate in elementary school. And so oh my gosh, he hated me after that day. He hated me. He hated me so much. The one day someone we had a little go-kart we used to drive around in the little parking lot circle, and he knew about it. And one day someone with a freaking truck did donuts on the school lawn. This idiot, maybe this explains how I defeated him in a debate. This idiot comes over and blames me and my brother for my go-kart tearing up the front yard. And like we walk over to see the thing, and the tire treads are like this wide, right? Just ripped up the whole yard. And my dad brings him back to the house and he shows him the go-kart. And he's like, do you see the tires on that? Literally, they were like 4 inches wide. He's like, are you stupid that you think that carved those foot wide treads in the lawn? And Mr. Bondley's like, all right. Bruce Bondley, by the way. Rest in peace, idiot. Sorry, mine is Olive Tree on my mother's side. So I'm just talking story today, I guess. Still is happening today. Trump is Hitler, but also appointed by Jesus himself and saved by God. They are both extremist views, but those get remembered easily. I mean, we're going through history now. So, and there's a lot more documentation, right? There's a lot more documentation, and it's a lot more easily accessed now. So it is a really weird thing now. The history we're going through is believed by emotion, at least on one side, possibly on both sides, right? You love Trump, you read the facts, and you see one thing. You hate Trump, you read the facts, you see something else. It's really bizarre. It really is. My real last name means son of Thomas. Yeah, that's why you get stuff like Davidson. It's not Davidson. It's David's son. Which Joe? David's son. Joe, David's son. Joe Davidson. My maternal, or my grandmother, my real grandmother, not the one who died when my mom was born. Oh, when my dad was born. Her name was Peterson. Last name was Peterson with a D. So if you, by the way, are in the central northeast, like Minnesota, Missouri, not Missouri, that kind of area, and you knew someone whose last name was Peterson with a D, high chance they are a long lost relative of mine, because it's a very odd spelling of Peterson. Sorry, I'm just disrupting. Just really like the accent. That is true. Family names are a bit more modern. Mike the artist. That'd be Mike the troll. You're disrupting. We like squirrels around here. We go squirrel hunting around these parts, boy. It's more like a clan name. In Sicily, it's all about family. Mi familia. I spotted my mother's last name in a Venetian catalog of 1340. That part of Peloponnese was under their rule for a while. My last name was shortened. My grandfather knew it and told me once, but I can't remember it to save my life. Wow, I thought I missed this. No, DJ, you are here bright and late. Tina the Knowing. Yeah, but I swear the rabbits run without much of sense of real direction. I know. It's also, my head is a little bit like I have an extra, I don't know, this pressure, dude. It's like there's a balloon right here pushing forward onto my skull. So, sorry, we're not getting terribly deep. I think this episode started a little deeper than I usually like to dive, and so I'm just gonna freaking chase squirrels for the rest of the show. Last names became a thing in the later Middle Ages. There you go. You know what else became a thing around that time? Last names for the Japanese. The Japanese didn't have last names either. And then, like, around the later Middle Ages, that's when they started attaching last names. And what are they called? In Europe, you'd call them house sigils. In Japan, they started, what are they called? Like, every family would have its own little crest. Ours is our Takahashi clan name sigil is a it's a swallow, not a swallow. House. Oh, what's that bird called? Finch. It's a finch and bamboo. It's like a bamboo and then a finch flying to the bamboo. That's our house sigil. I should get a stamp of that. The name Leicester is primarily of English origin and generally means from Leicester or Roman town. It's a name derived from the Old English word Chester, meaning Roman fort or town, referring to the city of Leicester in England. The name Miller is primarily an occupational surname, meaning it originated from a person's job. It most commonly refers to someone who worked in a mill, specifically grinding grain into flour. I know. I'm well aware. Thank you. The name is of British origin and is also found in other European countries, sometimes as an Americanized form of similar surnames like Mueller. Mueller. There's a more detailed explanation. We don't need it, but yeah, that's why there's so many Millers. That's why there's so many Smiths. What else do you need in a town? Barber? Johnny Barber. Not as popular as Miller and Smith. I bet there are a lot of Jennifer Lopez's in the world, probably. Jelly from the block. Justin says, a fence is a person who deals in stolen goods. That's true. Who is Jenny Miller? I wonder if I have a relative. I'm sure I have a relative somewhere named Jenny Miller. I don't know. I can't think of one, though. Jenny was a shrimping boat. If I beat him up, she will like me. That's probably how being people works. Yeah. Jenny is the most beautiful name in the world. Did you sell tickets, Mike? Gosh, I wish I had. I wish I had. I said, now say something. I used to love go-karts. I lived close to a go-kart track and used to go all the time when I was a kid. The go-kart is why I can type so fast today. So my dad bought the go-kart and then he said, you have to learn to touch type 35 words a minute before you can use the go-kart. So if you guys know what touch typing is, you put your fingers on the F and the, I don't know what the hell is that, the J? The F and the J, right? The two, and then you type without looking at the letters, and you just learn where they are from your thing, and then you just put it in. That's why most keyboards have a little dimple or divot, bump. It's not a dimple. Dimple would be in on a little pimple on the F and the J keys, because touch typing, that's where you're supposed to put your index fingers. So it's at the point where, like me, it's like I touch type. What the heck? Well, up. So like you see my keyboard, like I'd say a third of the keys, there's no letters on it. My wife hates trying to use my keyboard. Because I wore the letters off my keyboard. But it's because of that. My dad bought that go-kart as an enticement to make me and my brother learn how to type quickly. I didn't go to typing school. I didn't do anything of that. I just learned how to touch type so that I could drive a go-kart. And now I can touch type. I can touch type. I've done that touch type thing. You know, they have the test thing. I think I got up over 80 words a minute. So I'd make a great secretary. I imagine Mike growing up was a lot like Sean from the show Psych. All right, I don't know how we're wearing. Son of Peter. Hey, who'd have thought? Peterson. I know, right? We're not related because you spell yours with a T. Da, da, da. I have a very dark sense of humor. I'm trying to hold back. No, no, by all means. Dark your sense of humor all over the place. Like a coat of arms. Yeah, there's a specific word. You know, let me look it up. I'll just look it up. What is the Japanese term for coat of arms? What is the Japanese term for sigil or coat of arms for a family? Kamon. It's kamon. So if you ever see like in a samurai movie, and the first people to have kamons were samurai. It wasn't made like it was I can't remember. Sometime in the Middle Ages, the government said, okay, y'all need your own last names now. They I guess they didn't keep as good of records, but like you ever see a samurai movie where a samurai will walk up and he'll hold up a little pill case. It's a little black pill case, and it'll have a sigil on there. That's a kamon. That's so the samurai had kamon first because it was like a badge of authority, right? And then after, I think maybe in the Meiji period or something, the shogun or shogunate or whoever, the emperor, I don't know who it was, they were like, everyone has to have their own kamon and their own last names. So it like became a thing. The Japanese did have last names, while traditionally surnames were primarily used by nobles and samurai. Commoners were required to adopt surnames. There you go, 1870. Before this, commoners often used by names like occupation or yeah, just like Europe. It's funny, huh? You'd think. I don't know. How is it like that? So that's roughly the same time, right? Well, no, it's much later in Japan, but it would be yeah, it was earlier in Europe. Interesting stuff. In the Eastern Roman Empire, last names were usually the name of your father, occupation, origin, or weird physical features. Jimmy the Nose. In 1870, Japanese government allowed commoners to adopt surnames. Oh, yeah, we already did that. What was Hancock's family? I'm going to skip that. What's the formal name of Jenny? In Greece, we use it as a diminutive of Eugenia. Jennifer, usually in America. Jennifer wouldn't be a diminutive of Eugenia. Yeah, I think in America we'd just call some name Eugenia Jean. Or actually, Eugene is my father-in-law's middle name. He hates it, so he just tells people his middle name is Gene. Look, my middle name is Stanley. I think it's a terrible middle name, but I can also divert that and say my middle name is Stanley. It means you type without looking at the letters. Yeah. Nipple. I am at 99% no letters now. Okay, the only thing I can't touch type for some, which seems like the easiest part to touch type, are the numbers. It's like the letters I can do like 80 words a minute, something like that. I haven't done that thing well. I think I might have hit 90 on one shot, one time. Maybe the words were easier. But for some reason, when it comes to the numbers, which they're just in a row, it should be the easiest thing to touch type. I have to look for the numbers. That was weird. The F in communism stands for food. There is no F in I do believe my last name was changed, but I can't remember. If it was the D or E that was changed. I've always had long nails, so I learned to type using them. I've had so many keyboards where the nails scratched off all the letters. So it was either Peterson or Petersen originally. You mean we might be related? Well, we're all related if you go back far enough, right? Oh, we're over an hour. Let me skip through here and see if anybody's made any terribly important points. Oh, Eugenios means of noble lineage. French, a lot. When I have a type a lot of numbers, I just use the 10 keyboard on the side of the keyboard. I know, right? But that I'm not. I can't touch type that either. I just get slowed down by numbers. It is what it is. I hunt and peck and copy paste. That's actually why I like writing, because like to me writing is like thought to fingers, and I could just. And also why I hate typing on my freaking phone. That thumb pad thing, I hate it. I always want to, if I'm on any social media, I'd rather just get on my computer. That's why it's like, maybe that's why I post so much, because I type so fast. I miss my calling. I should be someone's secretary. Except for now you got voice to text, so. AI taking everybody's jobs away. Anyways, that's it for the show. Thank you, everybody. Sorry it wasn't a very deep theological thing, but I just had a point to make. Death comes for us all. I hope I didn't get too grim. There is hope in that the resurrection comes for us all, too. Thanks, everybody, for being here. God bless you all. Hope to see you on the Discord, or at least on tomorrow's episode of Cross Examinations.